What's the Big East going to be like this year? I talked to Coach Stewart the other day. He's looking at Pittsburgh, obviously. He thinks Cincinnati's going to be good. He's hoping that he'll be in that at the top portion of that next tier and can compete.
Well, there's 5 teams really that can contend in the Big East this year. You've got Rutgers, West Virginia, Cincinnati, South Florida, and Pitt. Now, you can make a case for any one of them to win the title. But the thing I don't like about Cincinnati, the defending champ, one returning starter on defense. They have just 17% of their tackles returning from last year. And when I say tackles returning, I mean take all the tackles combined from last year and what players coming back have what tackles, just 17%. So that concerns me. They'll be more explosive offensively, tough schedule, so I'm eliminating Cincinnati. West Virginia, now when you talk to Coach Stewart, what was his take on the offense this year? Because all I've heard is he wants to pass the ball more and pass the ball more. Is that what he's talking about?
Well, you know, he wasn't letting I tried to get him to get specific about it because I went over how many returners he had on both sides of the ball, and obviously he no longer has Slayton or Pat White, and he's just extolling all the virtues of those 2 great All-Americans. And he was kind of elusive. It's like he didn't want to let the cat out of the bag.
He keeps talking about Jared Brown being a great passer. He says, I'm going to pass the ball more. Well, we saw what happened in Nebraska when they went from the pure option to passing the ball more. They went in to become a losing team. Last year, they threw the ball 40 more times than they did the previous year for 100 yards less passing, and their production dropped by a full touchdown from the previous year. Now, he's talked about letting Jared Brown pass. If that happens, I think he put West Virginia by the wayside. Their strength is running the football. They've got Noel Devine in the backfield. Jared Brown's a good runner, too, at the quarterback spot. He's a big guy, big, strong arm. I think he'll do well. But if they start throwing the football over the place, I think West Virginia's in trouble. That narrows it down to 3 teams for me: Pitt, West Virginia, and Rutgers. Now, Pitt's loaded, both offense, defense. Probably if they have a couple of question marks, they lose their top 2 running backs from last year. But they've got the talent to contend. Same thing with South Florida, but South Florida's just been a team where they've had the top talent maybe of the Big East the last couple of years, and they just disappoint in a couple of games. I went with a surprising pick. I went with Rutgers to win the title, and here's the reasons why. When the average fan looks at the team, he looks at the quarterback, the running backs, and the receivers. Well, if you do that with Rutgers, you go, this team's not very good. They lose Mike Teal. They lose Underwood and Britt at receiver, and their top running back last year only averaged 3.9 yards per carry. Well, I think they're going to get better production out of the running backs because they have my number 7 rated offensive line. They've got good talent at quarterback. I like the receivers. Brown, who returns at wide receiver, had 20.9 yards per catch last year, so he's dangerous. They got a good defense, and I love their schedule. Never do you see a BCS conference team that takes on my number 107 schedule, which is what Rutgers faces this year. They get cream puff, and then the 5 teams I just mentioned, they get the other 4, Pitt, South Florida, all at home. So they're probably going to be favored in all 12 games. I don't think they're one of the top 10 teams or top 15 teams in the country, but they could very well end up that way. And, if a BCS conference team like Rutgers runs the table and they're one of the lone bids at the end of the year, they could be playing in a national title game. Wouldn't that be something?
Our very first show, and already he's getting me started on the BCS. And, oh, my. All right, so Rutgers is your sleeper pick. Pitt is your second choice?
Yeah, I went with Pitt and then South Florida.
Okay.
So I think those are your top Big East teams.
Okay.